Welcome to the Football Journeys podcast with me, Matt Hemsworth.
And me, Fraser Franks.
Well, we're here again at UCFB's studios here in Media City, up north. And on this podcast, look, we love telling stories about careers and lives that don't really follow the traditional path. Well, I guess today, Shadab Iftikhar could probably write the book on alternative pathways into football, and maybe one day he will. He's born into a British Pakistani family in Preston in the late 1980s, so therefore he could have been forgiven for thinking that football was a closed shop for people from his background. But after playing his brother's copy of Championship Manager at aged 8 and leading a John Barnes-inspired Liverpool, as the interview goes, team to glory, it became an obsession. I think he might even said it became a bit of an addiction, but it was an obsession that fired him towards a pathway where he wouldn't take no for an answer. Analysis, scouting, coaching jobs have followed in the Premier League. That's the English Premier League, the Mongolian Premier League, the Samoan Premier League, of course. Working with national teams including Belgium, Mongolia, and his parents' homeland of Pakistan. He's also managed, quote, the worst team in Britain. But now, after a spell at Wigan Athletic, he's about to manage again in another Premier League. And I hope I've got the pronunciation right, with Thimpu City in Bhutan. Shadab, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite.
Well, I mean, talk about diverse football careers. Yours is incredible. And I don't know how we're going to cover everything. I'm sure we won't. We might even need to get you back for another one. But we always like to take our guests back to the beginning. And there's that moment. And I saw a little wry grin went across your face because you knew I was going to mention Championship Manager. It's been a massive thing for a lot of young men and women who love their football. And it's one of those things, I think it fires a lot of imagination in terms of coaching. The story goes, it was your brother's copy. You got an older brother and he wouldn't let you play on it. You played that Liverpool team of the 1990s, and you became obsessed not just with the game, but the idea of coaching. And there's a quote in an interview that I've seen, I think it's something along the lines of, I was made to manage. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember the game. It was 2-1. We beat Man United. John Barnes hit the double. It was a brilliant game. It was 95-96, I remember, Championship Manager. And yeah, it's when I look back, it's always been in me. I was built for management. I was born to manage. I love everything about management, apart from losing, but absolutely everything. And it's always been in me. It's just when I was 17, I realised. But from when I look back now, management is everything. I'm never happier until I'm managing.
And I mentioned that I think it's really important to think about your family's heritage. And there's a phrase that goes, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Which doesn't apply to you because there won't have been any managers in the Football League, not many players in the Football League that had the same heritage as you, and kind of go through the list. And I think Azesh Rayman, he's had a really short spell with my team, Gillingham, and did a good job there. Hamza Chowdhury now, interestingly, is now gone and represented his family's homeland of Bangladesh. So there are very, very few South Asians in the game, no managers at all. I don't know whether you can go back into the mind of maybe not the 8-year-old, but the 17-year-old, and think, well, what was it about you, the young British Pakistani, who thought you could do this? You could become a football manager.
I think when you're young, you're a bit naive. You don't really know the pitfalls. You don't really know the industry well. You're just full of enthusiasm. I might have not grown up still. I'm still full of enthusiasm. But I think it's just that thing where I decided I wanted to be. Rafa Benitez was a huge inspiration. I wanted to be a Rafa. And that was it. I didn't think about how difficult it was going to be. I didn't think about anything like that. Like when you're young and you're like a player, you just fearless, aren't you? The same thing for me. I was just fearless. I just wanted to get in. I wanted to manage. Thought I was going to do it. And I've never looked back. Obviously, there's been lots of ups and downs and lots of bumps. But what industry isn't? Yeah. What success road isn't like that?
Has there ever been a plan B? Or has it always been, this is what I'm going to do?
I think there's been times where you think, do I want to continue?
Yeah.
I think that's it. But then when you're, okay, what are you going to do? What is plan B?
Yeah.
And you think, no, because then you think, I want to defend the box this way, or I want to attack this way, or, it's just, I can't explain it, but management, everything. Like I've been on the phone, I came here today, I was on the phone. 2:30 in the morning yesterday, I got off the phone. I absolutely love everything about it. If I don't manage, I wouldn't know what to do. I think for a week it'd be fine, but after that, I'd have to attack a box or defend the box. I have to try and do something. I just love it. It's just
and
everything.
You told us off air how good you are at two-touch. But was there, when you're playing like Championship Manager and loving football, Was it straight away to be a manager, or was it to be the idea of being a player before that?
I played a lot on the streets, and I think that's where the love for head tennis comes in. So all I remember was growing up playing street football, 60 seconds,
What a game that was.
What a game 60 seconds is. And that was my education.
Yeah.
That was what I remember. Then when it got dark, I'd go and play Championship Manager, and that was it. Now, I was never good enough to be in an academy. I was never good enough to be an average player outside of football. So I knew that I was never going to make it. So for me, it was management that I was always ready for, but I always wanted.
Yeah.
And I think Rafa Benitez was a big inspiration for me.
Now, you started your management career on the computer, and then you continued it at school. So I think you were 11 and you were managing the school football team.
Yeah, I got along with the RE teacher, and he was taking the team, and we were talking about United had just beaten Liverpool 1-0. It's a Ferdinand header. I remember Liverpool on a good run, and I was talking about the game. So he goes, "Well, why don't you help me?" So I said, "Yeah," and that was it. I said, again, it wasn't a career then. I just, again, love for football, love for Rafa. That was it. And then I started managing and sat deep in those games as well. Some things never changed, but no, that was it. And it was just mad when I look back now.
Was that a natural thing because they would have been your classmates, I'm guessing that same age as you. Was it a natural thing to be able to be a leader at that age as well?
So I took the year 7, so I was in year 11.
Okay.
So I took the year 7s.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of an age difference,
Yeah.
and it was okay. But I just remember taking the back line. I remember the sessions I did as well. It's crazy. I actually forgot about it until you mentioned it, but now it's all coming back. And I think it was...
So you would have been a bit older. So these are 11-year-old boys, but you were, 14 or something?
Yeah, so I'd have been 15, yeah.
Right.
And I remember playing it. It was Darren Bent's cousin. He scored 5 against me. And he was brilliant at the time.
Yeah, you couldn't legislate for that as a coach.
That was the player's fault, obviously. So yeah, and I just remember that was it. We had a few games towards the end of the year as well. And then next thing I know, I was going to college, and next thing I know, I'm playing Football Manager, and then it's a career.
Yeah.
And I've never looked back since.
Yeah, so you got involved at Hesketh Bank, which is a good quality local team, West Lancs League. I think you managed the reserve team when you were 17. And I think it's going to be important to reflect on sort of preconceptions that other people have as well, because you're constantly pushing against it. And it's one thing I love about you is it's almost as if you don't notice other people's prejudices, which is a huge credit to you. Because the idea of a young 17-year-old South Asian boy pitching up at Hesketh Bank, and I have no idea who the lads would be, but I'm imagining there would have been a lot of white boys from Preston. And then you turn up as a 17-year-old managing that team. What was their reaction to you, and how did that feel trying to manage those guys?
I think my mentality was very simple. I had to manage. I wanted to manage in the Premier League. That was the goal at 17. That was the aim. That's what I want to achieve. So I needed to manage around seniors. I needed to be in a senior changing room. So I remember speaking to the Hesketh Bank chairman every day at 5 o'clock. I'd ring him because he'd finished work and I wanted to be part of the grassroots team. And I wouldn't let him go. Every day I used to ring him. I sent him my CV. And I think it was the under 12s at the time. And then there was an academy that used to be on their 3G. So I used to coach there. And one morning he came to me, he goes, "What's your plans for next year?" Nothing. So he goes, "Would you be interested in the reserve team?" And I was 18 at the time. And I said, "Yeah, 100%. So he goes, "Well, yeah." And looking then, it was an amazing achievement. Just to be an 18-year-old to manage in a reserve team, adults, brilliant. But what credit does Paul Sargent, the Hesketh Bank chairman, have to take? Because that's a big move. It's a brave move to give somebody like myself, an 18-year-old, that opportunity. Paul Sargent deserves unbelievable credit. And I made a lot of mistakes, upset a lot of players, caused mayhem. But that helped me so much because I was leading at 18, 19. I still remember my first game. I got beat at Coppell on a Monday night. Monday night football it was. And we played a diamond. And we were 1-0 down after 12 minutes. Drew 1, came back just before half time. Then we conceded in the 75th minute. And I still remember that Monday night. And I was like, what an achievement. Not the result, obviously, but to get there.
Draw?
Yeah, it was 2-1.
Oh, you lost 2-1, sorry.
Yeah, so I wish it was a draw. But it's just that achievement that I was there 19, managing Hesketh Bank reserves.
Just the idea of an 18-year-old even getting up in a room and talking in front of a group of lads aged 18 to 35, even that on its own was being an achievement. So the idea of you putting yourself as the gaffer, the boss in front of them, it strikes me, and I'm going to put this to you early on, and we'll come back to it, I'm sure. People suffer from imposter syndrome. It strikes me that you suffer from that less than most, that you really do back yourself in situations where I think many people would be too scared to back themselves on.
I think early on it was naivety. There was a big belief in myself, but that belief was based on Championship manager, football manager, I don't know, but it was there, but I don't know why it was there. I really believed in myself when I was younger. I think it was me playing football a lot, having this mentality that I'd studied the game. I hadn't, but that naivety helped me massively. I think my belief now comes from my work ethic and the fact that I have prepared really well. I work really hard. I give everything to my craft as much as I can. Can I give more? Absolutely. But right now I give as much as I can. So that's where the belief comes from now. I think younger, you're a bit naive. You just think you know everything. But now you understand that if you work hard, you prepare well, you don't take shortcuts, you'd be far better prepared than if you didn't.
You say you could give more. Does that mean you should be taking calls at 3:30 in the morning instead of 2:30? I mean, it sounds like you give absolutely everything.
I think I look back at, for example, going to Pakistan, I lost in the final. So if I shouldn't have lost that game. I look at Heskov Bank in the 19, I could have done better.
Yeah.
Fort William, I could have done better. So realistically, there's more room for improvement. And you got to compare yourself to the very best. You can't compare yourself to my next door neighbour.
Yeah.
I got to compare myself to Pep. I got to compare myself to Jurgen Klopp, a Jose Mourinho, a Benitez, a Roberto. What would they have done in that position? They would have got better results. So it's maybe I'm on the phone till 2:30, but how efficient is it? And I think that's where you've got to really be harsh on yourself and demand more of yourself and compare yourself to the best.
It's interesting. That's very hard on you, that mindset, because you're comparing yourself to people who have been given the opportunity and have achieved huge things. When you say compare yourself, is that because you're always striving to be the best Shadab Iftikhar? And if you compare yourself, you'll get to be the best Shadab Iftikhar? Or what would worry me would be if your mindset is, I've got to achieve what Jose Mourinho achieved, I've got to achieve what Jurgen Klopp achieved, because, well, maybe one day you will. I mean, is it you try and do that so in the hope that you will be the best version of yourself?
I think it's a bit of both. I think I want to achieve big things in the game. I've not given my life or made the sacrifices to then say I didn't achieve a winner's medal in whatever tournament. That's not enough for me. I've got to have a legacy. I've got to leave an impact on the game. And I'm not giving up my life, giving up sacrifices to be called a top 50 manager. You know, at the end of the day, you compare yourself to the best, but they've got 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week. They, do the same things I do. So if they can do it, then there's no reason why I can't do it. Pep Guardiola's done unbelievable for football. He's a workaholic. If he can work that much, then why can't I work that much? And that's what I truly believe in. So I think it's about not trying to copy, because you've got to be yourself, but you've got to make an impact in the game. Otherwise, what is the point?
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to make an impact.
Do you think there can be a balance as a top manager?
I think balance is important with your team. I think.
That wasn't the question.
I don't think so. I think if you want to achieve greatness, and I heard David Goggins say this the other day. I'm a big fan of David Goggins.
I like him.
Brilliant. And I think it's a great point that if you want to achieve greatness, balance is not the way. You've got to be extreme. You've got to be doing things that other people don't do. If you look at any great, successful athlete, person, they've done things that other people haven't do. I think Khabib wrestled bears when he was a kid, and it's not normal. You know what I mean? But look at that. I think, Tyson Fury and Usyk leaving their families, the sacrifices they made, at the pinnacle of the sport. They didn't get there by chance. They worked unbelievably hard. So is there a balance? I don't think so. I think you give everything to your career. And like any successful story, everything else, it makes a sacrifice for your craft.
I think if there is that complete balance, you are going to be. And I remember you had this. You had. I know you went to see some of the works at one of the football clubs that we work with, and he was almost reiterating to you, like you go above and beyond for people and answer the phone at different times. And he said, you can stop doing that and it might be a bit more balanced in your life, but you'll also be bang average. And it was like, that's the reason that you are so good at your job is there's a time and a place to come back, so it isn't all consuming and you're working pointlessly just for working's sake. There's a time where to work smart and to come back from it. But if you're going to be the best at something, you are going to be working harder than most people. You're going to be taking calls at 2:00 in the morning because it's your purpose. It's what it's what your gift is. And you almost can't have the light without the dark. You can't just go, well, I really want this bit, but I can't have that bit. It's like there has to be a give in one of the directions.
I wonder actually, you're cheating in a way, Shadab, because your balance is you love it. And so therefore, because of the obsessive nature of your view of football and coaching and tactics, and I love football, but things like tactics and the way you set up leaves me cold, because I just don't think I'm very good at it, so therefore I'm not drawn to it in the same that you are. So actually you almost do achieve balance, because you taking a call at 2:30 in the morning about a play you might be bringing in from Senegal or whatever else, that excites you. So actually, I'm not really alleging that you're cheating, but because you feel that way, it comes naturally for you. And I think Pep is a good example. I've seen interviews of him. He's obsessed with football. So therefore, because he's obsessed with football, it's natural for him to obsess over, tactics at City and the next player they're bringing in, etc.
I think Roberto said it brilliantly, that it's a passion. You're not working. It's not a job. It's a passion. So it never feels like when I'm managing. And there's been times, I think, when you haven't got a good changing room, that's when the job becomes really difficult. That's when it becomes work. But when you've got a good changing room and you've got good people around you, it's not work. Then it's just passion, and it's
I had this exact conversation last week with a player that I'm working with, who said, I think I said to him something, what have you got on today? And he said, I'm going to work. When he's playing for a club in the Football League and he's training. I never, although sometimes it felt like it, I never once said I was going to work. I said, I'm going to football, I'm going to training. For me, I never saw it as work. And I just got him to reflect on it a little bit of, you did that exact same thing at 16, 17, 18. Did you call it work then? And it's like, no, because there was a play element to it. It was like, I'm going to play football. I'm not going down the coal mine. It's not that. But, I think a big part of, some of the stuff we do is you're trying to get senior players to go back and be that kid sometimes, because the element of play, or it has become a job, it has become work, and it can be with the pressures and some of the things that go on behind the scenes in football. But to keep it that element of, no, this is my passion, this is what I want to be doing, is priceless.
Well, I think that's right. You said the comment that was made by the person that we work with at a football club. What I've tried to do in recent years, as I'm an older man, I can make decisions for myself, etc., is I have turned away work, which is work I don't want to do. And that's kind of the point. You're not turning away work you don't want to do. You're doing work that you do want to do. So I'm going to try and get us back on track, because that is my job, to make sure we get on track. We're not going to be able to cover your entire career, because it's so wild and varied and brilliant. So to get us back on track, you did a number of jobs in England. You were Nelson, which is Northwest Counties League, so obviously that's a step up from Hesketh Bank. But the really interesting, and I think this is one of the most crucial elements of your journey, is you turned up not too far from your home in Preston. You turned up at Wigan's training ground, totally unannounced, with I think a dossier and a CV, and you said, I want to talk to Roberto Martinez, which, I hope you forgive me saying this, it almost makes you sound slightly mad. But in a way, it was slightly mad, because it was that kind of element of that faith in yourself, that you knew you had something to offer. And I think you now reflect back and say you weren't as good as you are now then, but you had that kind of real belief in maybe even your own potential. And then you talked about the guy at Hesketh Bank, and you've said his name, I've already forgotten it, and I apologise to him. But credit to him that he had the faith in you. Credit to Roberto Martinez that he was such an open-minded coach that he had a look at this document, which I think you passed it through to the security guy. Yeah. Roberto Martinez looked at it and went, actually, that's not bad. Bring the lad through.
I don't know if he said it wasn't bad. I think he was like, this guy's not going to leave me until I meet him. And, it's Roberto. That's what Roberto's about. Roberto's people skills is phenomenal. Tactically, he's phenomenal as well. If I had to pick one, I couldn't pick between tactically and how good he is with people. But it just shows you. I remember, I think they just played Liverpool. Probably the worst time to go in. Just played Liverpool, game on Saturday. And he had time to meet me. He asked me to come back. It was a Friday. Come back at 2:00. And I just sat in his office and I said, I want to be a manager. I want to be just successful like yourself. this is what I want to do. I'll pick up corns. And he was the one who suggested, okay, do the scout reports and let's see how that goes. And I'd sent that dossier on Barcelona, I think it was Pep's Barcelona, and a DVD on what type of sessions I'd do to prepare a team. And I sent it to everybody. And it hadn't got a response. So then I changed tactic thanks to my brother. He's the one who pushed me and said, well, why don't you just turn up? And I took his advice and I turned up at the right manager's door, and he's brilliant. And what can I say? I am where I am because of him.
Yeah, he let you play Championship manager. Oh, you mean Roberto or your brother?
Well, both. both can take the credit. But both of them, I think Roberto, if honestly speaking, he's progressed my career so much. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be able to do the jobs that I've done. Just working with him, Portugal, Belgium, Everton, Wigan, he's helped my career so much.
I love that unwavering belief to go, because I see this in life, and there's a lot of stuff I read around manifestation and kind of making like a commitment to yourself that, I'm going to do this. And when you are that committed, and for a lot of people, they're in a certain position, they look at that and they go, yeah, but I can't, he's not going to think twice about this. Like, when you actually get into a mindset and you would make a real internal commitment to go, I genuinely believe that he's going to see this and he's going to see value in it. It's such a gift, because so many people, there's that part where you are there and then there's meeting him, but the room in between, people will go, yeah, but come on, he's not going to do that. And they talk themselves away from it. But the unwavering belief to go, no, this is, I'm going to do this. This is where I'm getting to, is incredible. And you see any kind of story of someone doing this. I think of business people trying to get investment, or people trying to get involved in something. They have this unwavering belief that, no, I can do that and I can achieve it. Where do you think that came from for you?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But I remember David Goggins saying, what if?
Yeah.
What if it happens? Everyone, like the little voice, and it's always negative.
Yeah.
But what happens if it's positive? Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to be a Champions League winner.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be a World Cup winner. Somebody has to be a Copa America and African Cup of Nations. Why not me?
And fear is often the thing that holds people back. And for a lot of people in that situation, it's a fear of, you've got nothing to lose in that situation going to see Roberto Martinez. But for a lot of people, it's still a fear of, yeah, but he's going to laugh at me. Yeah, he's going to turn me away. Yeah, he's going to get rejected. Yeah. And those fears just ramble on and stop you from doing something that you haven't really got anything to lose. Why not go and speak to him? If it doesn't work for him, fine, I'll go to the next one. But it's that mindset that you're in there that you seem like you've had for, whether it's a gift that you've been born with or something that you've worked at, you seem to have had it for a long time.
I think, go back to your point, I think Matt, you made the point about Bro, I think he takes a lot of credit in this, because we used to have a lot of deep discussions about different things. And I think that's where the mentality shapes a little bit. And I'm not the most gifted in any area, tactically not the best, motivation not the best, work ethic not the best. But one thing I think I have is a mentality. And the people that I look up to, like a Khabib, a David Goggins, a Kobe Bryant, they're the people that I relate to. And it's those people that have just been successful, that do anything to be successful. That mentality, that's what I relate to. And I think that's one of the reasons why I probably have gone through all the difficulties, the setbacks, and I can bounce back, because I don't know what it is. It's now, I think, as I've got older, I've given so much, I'm going to keep going. But I've also made progress. If I hadn't made progress, then you got to think, are you doing the right thing? But each year, I think I've made progress. So for me, you just got to keep going. And the day that you throw the towel in is the day that the dream's over. But if you haven't got a towel to throw in, then you're right. So you just got to keep going.
Find something you love and go all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you've done. I want to take you on the first of your adventures beyond these shores, because you were University of Central Lancashire. You coached the university team. Roberto took you over to Everton. You still working on scouting reports, etc. on that. But then, and we might talk a little bit about social media a bit later on, because I know you don't have any social media accounts, but you certainly have had access to Twitter in 2016, because there was an advert on Twitter. I hope I get this story right, for Bayangol, which is a team in the Mongolian Premier League. And sometimes Mongolia is used as shorthand for a faraway country over here, isn't it? It's like Outer Mongolia, that idea of going somewhere the most obscure you can think of. I mean, at that stage, were you kind of scouring for opportunities, and because you were so determined to make it as a manager, you were prepared to really go for something really out there?
So the story is, and this is something I never normally do. I was actually in the shopping in Asda with the missus. Something that I never normally do because it's away from football. And I was on the phone to a friend, and he goes, "There's an advert in Mongolia. I can screenshot and send it to you." So I said, "Yeah." I came home. I remember sending the email that night. Thought nothing of it. A couple of days later, an email comes through, and it was a director saying, "Would you be interested?" So I said, "Yeah." We spoke a little bit. I said, "This could have legs." Bit by bit, Paul Watson got involved. He was a chairman at the time. And I started to think to myself, this is actually going to happen. And I was like, am I doing this? And then I said, yeah. And then a week later, I was in Mongolia. 2 days later, a day later, I was at the first game of the season. For me, the team had already started. And we got a 1-1. So yeah.
2016. So you will have been in your 20s then?
Yeah, 25.
25. You
25.
turn up. Lad from Preston turns up in Mongolia, manage this football team. I mean, it's a theme that will keep coming back about the faith that you had in yourself, which has really stood you in such good stead. Because I think I'm a pretty confident guy, but if you said I'll give you £10 million to go out and do that, I'm not sure I'd take the money because I'd be petrified.
I think it's just normal. I said you got to go and get a result. I promised this club that I'd keep them up. We weren't meant to be in the top division. We got promoted by default. We had already had 2 games. I needed to get points on the board. And I got there and I played 4-4-2, I remember. They went down to 10 men. They took the lead as well. That was even worse. And that's when I realised how big this job was going to be. We equalised and we were hanging on with 10 men. And I remember getting in thinking, whew, this is a big job, this. But it's just normal. I don't know. It's just normal to me.
Hesketh Bank is no different to Bayangol, no different to Barcelona. It's football.
Yeah. Hesketh Bank was another one. I took the team over with 8 days to go, with the club being promoted in, and there's no squad there. Lost the first 6 games. Paul Sargent again looked after me. I know there's a lot of people vying for my head in that moment. Got a result against Burnley, and then we managed to stay up with the game to spare. And again, that experience was so important. We talk about belief. I think a lot of it comes from experience. If you were 18, 19 and managing Hesketh Bank, I was also managing Sunday League as well. So I was managing in a Sunday League team. I was managing Saturday at 18, 19. So at 25, I was young, but I had a lot of experience there. I still made mistakes. Yeah, I'm sure I made mistakes in Bhutan. But I had a lot of experience. I'd done 4 years of scout reports. I'd been at Droldson as a first team coach. I'd been in academy as coach. So I had a lot of experience for a 25-year-old, and I was able to go into that situation probably the best I could have been prepared. Could I have done things better? Absolutely. And now I like to think I'd have kept that club up. But ultimately, the way I was, I probably as good as I could have done in that moment.
Yeah, and it was slightly chaotic. I think the club were promoted and were not necessarily ready for promote. They weren't promoted because they won their previous division. I think there was space in the league and it was a little bit chaotic.
Yeah, so they finished 3rd in Division 1 and the top 2 teams weren't promoted because they couldn't do it. So then they were given the choice of either get promoted or be disbanded.
Yeah.
So they went there, then they only had 8-9 days to prepare. Then they started and then I came in over there. So it was a difficult job, but it was what it was.
Yeah, well, every job you've taken on has been a difficult one. You then came back to the UK, and I guess you might even look at this as a slightly easier job, but you became an academy coach at Accrington Stanley. But I guess, was that important to come in and do another job at an English club and try and establish yourself there? In fact, it's something we chatted about offline. I think it's important to talk about now, is that kind of perception that you've only done it if you can do it in England as an English coach. That's something that does rankle a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think there's lots of people that go abroad and there's lots of football abroad. I think we've got to respect the fact that football's global and that it can be played anywhere, and it has to have that respect. I think we've got the best league in the world. Why have we got the best league is another big question. It's because of the diversity. But I think we have to make sure that we respect other people's journey and other people's leagues as well. And I think that's a big thing, massive thing.
Yeah. So you went to Accrington, but the next move is another really interesting one.
Nobody knows this. I'm going to give you an inside.
Oh, good.
Here we go. So I went to Accrington. I was full-time in the academy and I was desperate to manage. And Dave Sutton, who played at Huddersfield, had just become director at Berska. And he goes, do you want it? And I was like, full-time at Accrington, or I'll take 100 quid a week to go manage Berska. So I handed my notice in at Accrington. I went part-time and ended up going to Berska. And I struggled massively. It was a hard time. Pre-season, we were brilliant. And then I lost my striker the day before the season started. And we struggled. And after 3 months, me and Dave spoke and we parted way. But I left a full-time academy job to go manage part-time.
Yeah.
And those 3 months were brilliant for me as a manager because I really struggled. I was losing games. I was falling out with players. I was falling out with the owner. And I remember flying to Belgium to speak to Roberto. And Roberto was like, have you managed upstairs? I said, I'm struggling to manage anywhere at the moment. I said, forget upstairs. I said, I'm struggling here. And he's like, this is what you needed to do. This is what you have to do now. And his advice was brilliant, but I was too late going to Roberto. But that 3 months was tough, but what great grounding for me as a young manager.
I always say this when a manager gets a job and say a manager gets sacked in his first job, he will be a better manager for his second job. People don't see it that way. So there's a stat in English football of managers get their first job where it's the first time they make mistakes and they get sacked. They will be a better manager than next club that they go to. So you're getting a better version of that. But it isn't quite seen that. You reframe that and go, it was a really difficult 3 months, but I guarantee you come out a better manager after a tough 3 months and parting ways than you did before you took that job. I remember people with Graham Potter was one when he got sacked from Chelsea. Everyone writes him off and says he's a bad manager. Yeah. He was the best one, talked about England jobs and got a 6-year deal at Chelsea, whatever it was. He has a difficult time like so many other managers did. And then he gets let go. He will be a better manager than the one that they paid a fortune to get in. But we often just don't see it like that. We see, instead of seeing learning and beautiful mistakes and growth, we see, they've lost games and it must be a bad time and he must be a worse manager off the back of it. So reframing it like that is exactly what I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to go through difficult moments. How do you get better? And how do you become a better man? My analogy was always, let's come back to the point about I always wanted to manage. I look at it like driving a car. You can sit in the passenger seat, but you're not behind the wheel. Until you get behind the wheel, that's when real management happens. Now, I might have had really bad cars, but the point is that I've managed. I have managed. So when somebody said to me once, you're only a manager after you lost 2 games. And Berska, it was Tuesday and Saturday. I was a manager then because I was done. But you understand then and then when you go to another club and you're in these difficult moments, you've got that experience to fall back on. You've been there before. I remember it was a Floyd Mayweather quote that he said, I've been here before. And that drew a lot of strength. And I think it's something that I look at is, I've been here before. I know what it takes to get a result now. I know this. I know because of these experiences. If I had never gone through that difficult time at Berska, if I'd never gone through those moments at Escov Bank, if I'd never gone for those times at UCLan is something that doesn't really get mentioned in my journey enough. I spent 5 years at UCLan, brilliant time. I think we were successful massively. Great grounding for me. Practice things, dealing with different players, dealing with different elements, dealing with a massive institution. What better grounding than any coaching badge, by the way?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you're dealing with a bunch of students there. So you're going to get a much more diverse group. And I mean, the Berska is an interesting one. Actually, Berska only rings a bell for me because it's one club that, not my team, Gillingham, met the FA Cup once. That's the only reason I've heard of them. They're a Northern Premier League team, I think. And what you will have turned up at is a group of tough Northern football players, and they'll see you as a lad in your 20s, South Asian boy, and be a little bit like, well, what have you got to tell me? And actually, maybe I'm being unfair on them as a group, but it would have been more difficult environment. Whereas I would wonder whether a group of students who've maybe got slightly diverse backgrounds might be more open to hear what you've got to say.
I think Berska, I think it's a bit harsh on the lads, to be fair. I think they were really good pre-season, and I made mistakes. I lost my striker, and I didn't have the experience to deal with it. Berska was my fault. It wasn't the players right towards the end gave me everything. I remember in one of the games, I can't remember who we were playing against, we were 2-0 down. We clawed it back, and then we lost 3-2. And a player said to me, he goes, if we didn't back you, we would have never pulled out of that second half performance. The players actually gave me everything. It was my lack of experience and lack of quality that cost me that job. That was it. I never could replace Yves Zama, who came with me to fight. I still hold it against him, by the way. So, but I never replaced him. I didn't have the experience to deal with it. I built the team around him. When I lost him, I learnt. So I take a lot of responsibility. I think I've never been in a changing room, and players are great. I've never been in a changing room where I felt the players don't believe in me or they look at me and think, who is he? I've never had that. And I'm very lucky because I've been to Esco Bank, I've been to Bursk, I've been to all these places where never ever have I felt that the players looked at me and thought, doesn't look like whatever. That's it. Never ever ever felt that.
Good.
And
Well, I owe those boys an apology, and I'm really heartened to hear that. That's fantastic.
I just wish they got a few more results from me.
Well, look, from Bursko, you made the obvious move, and you moved to Samoa. To a team called Velima Kiwi. I mean, what's really interesting about Samoa is it's a rugby country.
Yeah.
And I have no concept at all of the football heritage in that place. And I imagine you probably didn't as well. I mean, how on earth did that opportunity come up?
One familiar thing with myself is Paul Watson, the Mongolian chairman. He's the one who's got me every move abroad. He's the one who was linked me with the owner, Martin, over there. It was a difficult deal to get over the line, and it was a strange one at the time. We went over there, went quite early before pre-season. Took the family, went quite early, but just things didn't seem right. And the family didn't settle in pre-season. It just didn't feel great. And I sat down with the owner and I said, the family's not settling. I said, it's probably going to be a difficult one now for the whole season because could I give it 100%? And even though pre-season was going well, I think we would have done okay. I just felt that I needed to be honest with the club. And that was that. But great country though. Unbelievable country. The people are good. Honestly, people are brilliant. Rugby people.
Yeah.
So my type of football was
Slightly
very
slower
good.
pace of life than you're
Yeah,
used to.
relaxed. Everything was relaxed.
Yeah.
It was training was fun, but it was good. It was good experience, understanding different culture, different way of working. It was good.
Was you know, when you wanted to be a manager, was travel a big part that you thought of, or was this something that just came out of the blue?
No, I think I was speaking about this to a friend of mine yesterday that he wanted to get back into full-time football, and I was like, in the first team, I was like, this is what it is. I don't like airports now. I don't like hotels now. But when you're young, you don't realise what you're going to be in for. You don't realise that you might have to pack up and go. Nobody tells you this stuff. So when I decided I wanted to do it, I just thought I'd get to conference, I get to League 2, League 1, like we always, a straight road, no problems, Premier League, Champions League, maybe a bit of international football, retire, done. Didn't know Mongolia, Samoa, Scotland were going to be around, but yeah, I think it's something that I've had to do because if I wanted to manage, if I've cried about not getting a job or whatever, and you get a job, you got to take it. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter what, do what you got to do.
Yeah, nothing beats actually doing the thing, does it?
No.
Yeah.
No coaching badge, no nothing can replicate you being on the grass. No degree, no nothing.
Well, that then brings to, and I feel terrible for defaming them as the worst team in Britain, but that was the quote that came up. You returned to the UK, but went north of the border to Scotland and Fort William, and I think they kind of statistically were the worst team in the UK at that time, and they were losing every single game. And I think at that stage there was a documentary involved as well. So you ended up taking a job to take over Fort William. I think you had to bring in a load of English players as well to see if you could bolster their ranks, etc. I mean, how did that come about, and how did it?
This chapter's a unique chapter in my life. So I remember actually speaking to the FA about I wanted to go on the pro license, and I explained that the job that I get in the UK will be the job that no one wants, will be the hardest job, and will be the job that I get the least time. And I actually put that in the presentation. And then 2 months later, I met the Fort William chairman, and we met in, I think it was September time. And my only condition was that I wanted to make the club full time. With all due respect, I was done with part time. Bursker, I think it scarred me a little bit. I was done with part time football. So I'd only take the job if we were doing it full time. I saw the budget and I was like, that's not a full time budget. But I looked around and I thought, I've got no other opportunity. So I'm going to take it. So I spent October, November, December. I must have spoken to thousands of players, convincing them to come to Fort William, to be full time, live in a caravan. This is what it's going to be like. I remember I used to dread the phone going. It never used to stop. And this was the only time I was like, bad red player, I'm not coming. And when players don't get back to you sometimes, you have to take that. It was hard because I had to recruit a whole squad in, a lot of energy. And then I took the job, and then we started, and it's a crazy time, great time. John True was a good chairman though.
Yeah.
Really good chairman. Gave me a lot of support. Told me to make the club full time, and it was crazy.
What league were they in to go full time?
They were in the Highland League,
Yeah.
and nobody in the Highland League was full time.
Yeah.
We had the lowest part time budget, but I managed to make that full time. And yeah,
So was that a lot of young players that you were getting in at that time?
I couldn't pick. I couldn't be picky. I just had to say, if you said yes to me, I was in. Yves Zammer, the striker that left me to go to Southport, he came and he was 28. Came with his wife. Came over. So he came. We signed a few older players, but majority were young. Majority were looking for that chance in football.
Yeah.
That was the market that I was aiming at. Brexit happened, so I couldn't actually pick foreign players again. That was a big problem because of internationals. So that was a market that was close to me.
How are you attracting players? What was your pitch to get them to go to Fort William?
Full-time football. This is how we're going to work. This is how it's going to be. You do well here. This is where it's going to go. This is this. It was just that.
Yeah.
And it was a sales bit like Delboy, I felt like, actually. but no, it was good. It was good.
And you mentioned about Brexit. I know you weren't going to EU nations, but it does occur to me, maybe it's a slightly boring question, but it blows my mind. How does things work with work permits and whatever else? And you're going to places like Samoa and Mongolia. I mean, you must have a very good immigration lawyer for all these places you're going to.
I think I've been very lucky. I think Bhutan, the visa was really good on a work visa. Mongolia was a work visa as well. Samoa was a support letter from the government, so that was that. I think when a club wants you and they want you as a manager, they can help you get your certificates. I've been lucky like that. So yeah, I remember flying to with Mongolia national team. I flew to Guam, and that was American owned. And I was there for an hour and a half. The whole team had gone through, and this guy was grilling me. And I remember him asking me. It was when Brexit was happening, and he's like, "Have you voted?" And I was like,
"This is an American immigration official."
Yeah, and I was like, "I've just been on a flight. How could I have voted?" So he goes, "What would you have voted?" So I said, "I'd like to stay." I said, "I like traveling." I said, "I'm thinking about it twice now." And then he's like, "Well, how much do you weigh?" I was like, "Huh?" And then he goes, "Honestly, an hour and a half I was there. So I must have got the right passport, that one." But yeah, that was that. But so traveling's been okay generally. Euros was difficult because the Euros was all over in COVID. But generally it's been okay.
I put it to you, and I'm sure it went through your mind, that there was a reason that you might have been the person that was interviewed for an hour and a half. Do you think your heritage played a part in that?
It's random, isn't it?
Yeah. I almost feel like I have to apologise. That's never happened to me, and I know why it's never happened to me. I mean, I've not travelled as much as you as well, but yeah.
Happened to me when I went to Hungary with Wigan. Just random again.
Again, I know I'm not responsible. I feel like I should say sorry to you, Shadab.
An extra hour at the airport, it's not a problem, eh? There's worse things in the world, eh?
There is. Well, look, I'll tell you one country you didn't struggle to get into, and this, I hope this will really make you smile. You've already alluded to the final, and I do want to talk to you about that. It must have been a matter of immense pride where you were offered the job to manage. It's confusing because Wikipedia flicks between it being the Pakistan under-20s team and the Pakistan under-19s team. But you took charge of like your grandparents' homeland, their young players, and you took them to the South Asian Football Federation Championships. It was the first time Pakistan had played there. I mean, that must have been hugely proud for you.
Pakistan was a special time. It was unbelievable. I remember the deal was quite straightforward. Brilliant. Belgium, I've got to give them a lot of credit. They helped me to get out of the contract over there, so fair play to them. I remember landing in Lahore, and it was crazy. I came down and they told me the camp has moved to Ahmedabad. I was like, Ahmedabad? I was like, that's not local. Because no, it's 5 hours away. And the only thing that was going through my mind was, that's the other side. I've never heard of Ahmedabad. That's where Bin Laden was killed. Now I'm going like, what is going on here? So I remember leaving at 6 o'clock, thinking I'd get there for 11. I arrived at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'd called a team meeting with the staff at 7. I could have been late, obviously, so I'd already slept.
But you called it before you knew you were going to be there at 3 a.m.
Yeah, that was a problem. I thought I was going to get there for 11, get a nice sleep. And then, no word of a lie, I had the best 12 days of my life in Ahmedabad. It was the staff, unbelievable. The quality of staff, unbelievable. The analysis coming with me to Bhutan. The players were brilliant. We had an unbelievable time. Abtabad is one of the best places I've ever been to. It was simple. Like the hotel, I've been very lucky. I've stayed in some great hotels. The Qatar hotel, it took me about 10 minutes to get from one part of the room to the other part of the room. That's how big that hotel was.
This was when you were with Belgium,
Yeah.
was it, at the World Cup?
Yeah.
And I've not even mentioned that, so we'll go back to that.
Abtabad was just so simple. Life was simple. It was brilliant. Honestly, it was just an unbelievable time. Great work. I think the freedom of the work as well was good. Really getting to grips with the team, preparing for a tournament. I'm a sucker for a trophy. Men, women like trophies don't. That's the saying. And I wanted to win that trophy so bad. I wanted to win any trophy so badly. And yeah, it was a great time.
It's really similar to every job you've taken, is that it was one hell of a challenge because it was Pakistan's first tournament, the first South Asian Football Federation Championships they'd entered. It was in, I'm going to test Fraser's knowledge and I'm going to cover my notes up here. It was in Kathmandu, which is the capital of, if you get it, I'll give you 100 quid.
No, I don't.
Nepal, I got a house with you.
Yeah, I didn't ask you. So it was in Nepal. And you won the 2 games in your group. So you beat the host Nepal, you beat the Maldives, and in the final, who did they play? India. I mean, as a massive cricket fan, and actually it's a real sadness that I have, is that there are no games where India play in Pakistan. There aren't enough games between India and Pakistan. It's the biggest game in cricket by no question at all. And football's obviously, it's grown massively in South Asia. So it's not the same passion as there is for cricket, but there's still a lot of passion. So the idea of you leading your boys out against India must have been, I mean, your heart must have been fluttering.
I didn't know this. So at the time when we got to the tournament, they'd booked our flights back after the group stages. I only found out when I arrived. And Pakistan had arrived in 2 groups. So this was one of the issues I had over there. And the second group arrived the morning of the game. So great preparation this was. We actually couldn't train the day before we flew because it was rain in Lahore. I never thought I'd say that. So I was quite angry with everything. I was a very angry man for 3 days. And we played the host. And what I didn't know was the whole of Nepal was coming. And that crowd, I felt like I was at Anfield. That crowd never let anything go. They were right on top and it was a horrible atmosphere. Great atmosphere, but horrible. And every time the move would go dead, they would just bounce up. And I was worried about the influence of the referee. I was worried about everything, and we'd won. I won 1-0, and I just remember thinking, get back to the hotel, and let's just regroup. Got through the group. We played Bhutan in the semi-final. We won it on penalties. And then we played India. And I made a big mistake in the game. I actually knew what was coming. I knew the manager had changed formation in the first game, and I knew he was going to do it in the second game against us. And I said, when he does it, we're going to go with a 4-5-1. So he would go to a diamond with split strikers, and that would cause the 5-4-1 problems. So I said, when he does it, we will go to a 4-5-1 and we'll defend the box differently. He did it straight after half-time, and I never changed. And to this day, I don't know why I didn't change. And then they scored, and then I changed, and then the game got settled, but then we were chasing, and we got caught. So my mistake is a mistake that I got to live with for the rest of my life, and I should have made that mistake.
You're very self-critical.
I think you take a lot of responsibility there.
You
I
have
think
to, because my boys gave everything.
Yeah.
The staff gave everything, and as a leader, you have to be the first one through. And it was my mistake. If it wasn't, I'd be honest and say it wasn't. It was my mistake. I knew what was coming, and for whatever reason, in those 5 minutes, I never
I think it's
changed.
very refreshing to see someone take so much responsibility. I think you see a lot of managers come out after games, and I know you have to do certain things to the media, but it will be. I always hate it when a manager will throw his own player under the bus. I think it's one of the worst things you can do. But it'll be the officials, it'll be a decision, it'll be something, and it isn't just going, yeah, I've got that wrong, wrong.
Well, after the India game, it was the officials that I blamed. but no, I didn't. I think I knew deep down straight away I messed up, and I love trophies. That's the only thing I mean football. I love winning trophies. That's why I got into first team football. Like I said, men, women lie, trophies don't. And I said to them, I would not keep a runners-up medal. I refused to do it, and I couldn't come home with a runners-up medal. So I gave my medal away because I only went there to win, and that was it. And I got to live with the fact that I made a mistake.
It's a great lesson though. Again, and it's something that will stand you in good stead going forwards, I'm sure.
I've got to start delivering not these lessons.
Is there a time in the future when that impeccably manicured beard of yours has gone grey, where you reflect on that story and think, I was the guy that took that young Pakistan team to their first tournament, got them to the final, and they lost to their much larger neighbours. Because for me, that as a third party, I reflect on that and say, Shadab did a good job there.
Winners win, and you're in football to win. Now, because I didn't win, you can't change the mindset. So I never got into football to finish second. I never got into football to get to a final. I never wanted to get to a semi. I wanted to win it. When I got offered the job, it was because of that tournament. I was going to win it. I said that in the first time we trained, we will meet India in the final and we will win. And we didn't. So you got to win. That's what football's about, winning. And I didn't. So say whatever, we can cut it and dice it in different ways. The reality is I got beat in the final and didn't win.
Do you think football's come away from winning being so important now?
I ask you, what do you think?
I think maybe the style of football has almost gone alongside winning.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think at certain clubs there's demands to we win at all costs. I think for others it's we're playing at this style of football at all costs, and whether that means we win or lose doesn't really matter because this is the way that we play. I think there's got to be a room for both. You want to be able to insert your style and your philosophy on your team, but winning is the most important thing, and I think that has to remain the most important thing, and the bits behind it are secondary. I think if you can do both and marry it and it be a great performance and attractive style of football, great. But if you could pick one or the other, I think you'd naturally choose the winning.
Doesn't matter how you win, as long as you win. And that's the whole I know. That's why I stayed out of academy football. That's why I wanted to be in first team. That's why I wanted to fight for trophies because that's it. That's me.
Yeah.
I get beat at table tennis, get beat at head tennis. It bugs. It winds me up, and I don't know. I think that's just me. I want to win.
Well, that analogy about getting beat at head tennis brings us quite nicely to Wigan, because I know that you had a pretty decent record at the training ground there. So you were brought in by Sean Maloney alongside Tom Huddleston. Actually, I like the kind of juxtaposition between you and Tom coming in. You're both equally valued as coaches, but your backgrounds couldn't have been more different. You got Tom as the ex-pro, and then you as the guy, the obsessed coach and you came in at the same time. Did you, when you took that job, did you see that as potentially your pathway towards getting a manager's job back in England?
No, I saw it as everything I've done up to then. So the Mongolia, the Pakistan, the Samoa, that was it now. It all led into now me closing that chapter. I've arrived in League One as a first team coach. Now it's the start of a new journey where I'm going to work under Sean for a long period of time. Yes, one day I would like to manage, but I was in no immediate rush.
You're still a very young man for manager.
And I knew what a top manager Sean was. I knew that he would help me to develop in areas that I wasn't strong in. And I thought that's where it was a perfect match for me. I don't know if it was a perfect match for him, but for me, it was a perfect match. And that's why I thought everything was going to be closed. I'm now ready for the next chapter at Wigan.
And Sean had worked with Roberto Martinez, so that's how you came across each other as well. And I think it's an important thing to get across is like this stuff's not coming out of nowhere. People have worked with you before. They know your work ethic and they know what you can do, and that's why he brought you in. How was the environment at Wigan Athletic? I mean, they're a big club for where they are at the moment.
I think the players were brilliant. I think I loved working with the players, and I think this is really interesting. Where I was in probably in other people's eyes and where I was in my eyes were probably different. I think one thing Wigan taught me was I was ready to manage. I was ready to be a number one. The Mongolia, the Heskov Banks, all of that, I was ready to be a number one. And I think that was the way I felt. And I said this to Sean very early on, that I'm ready. I feel ready, and I think I enjoyed my time at Wigan, but when it's all said and done, I needed to manage. But God doesn't make mistakes. I was put in that position because it was the right thing for me. There were certain things that I needed to see. There's certain things that I needed to learn because I'm young. I've got a lot to learn, and I've got a lot. And management's brutal. I might get a second chance in different places, but in reality, I'm not going to get a second chance. So when I do get the fancy car, I've got to make sure I can drive it properly. Yeah. And all the bangers that have gone before, that's the reason. But Wigan, I was probably in the back seat. That's the role that I had. But I learned a lot at Wigan. And it was a hard time, but I learned a lot. And I loved the players, man. I loved the players. Honestly, it was the best thing. And apart from head tennis, obviously.
And what was the standard like compared to what you've coached before?
Obviously a lot better, but I was never nervous. I always felt I was ready. I remember my first session.
Football.
Yeah, football. I was never nervous. I was never worried. There might be more eyes on me from other people, but I wasn't nervous. I think Sean was really good with that as well. Sean was like, go and do what you normally do. Wherever you be in Pakistan, Fort William, go and do what you normally do. And I never looked at it as I knew that there'd be more eyes on me, not from the place. I knew that, but that didn't bother me. It was what it was. And I was ready to do what I wanted to do, and I love the players.
And what was your day-to-day role like at the club? What would be your usual day at Wigan?
So more out of possession I was focused on. I think one thing Sean, and I think he's right, I'm more stronger out of possession than in possession. I think that's just the way I am. I think there must be some Italian. I know you mentioned Pakistan, but there must be some Italian somewhere down the line. There has to be. And that's where the love for Simeone comes in, and Conte and Benitez.
It's not a very Pakistani thing, but I always think Pakistani cricket very attacking. I grew up like with Wakar and Wasim. It was like being skillful and on the attack. So it's obvious you've obviously got some Italians.
Just take a 1-0 and 10% now. But yes, I think for me, I think that was it. So the day-to-day was I didn't do set plays. I know somebody from the FA said, "Oh, are you just doing set plays over there?" That was an interesting conversation. But no, I didn't do set plays. I think it was just about out possession. But obviously, I watched a lot of the opponents because that was how I would do things. So yeah, it was really good. Sean was good. I think I learned a lot. And I think it was just I needed to manage.
And what would Sean have seen in your time it was at Belgium together that you saw? What would he have seen in you to bring you into his first managerial job, was it?
No, second
managerial job.
And I think we had a good relationship. One thing people might not know is when I got to Scotland, he got to Scotland, but he helped me massively. I arrived a couple of weeks before he got the job, and he helped me massively. So it was a good relationship there already. And then in the season before I came in, I was in a lot at Wigan, watching stuff, dealing with just with him. I went to a lot of study visits around the country, and I think it was good. I think you have to ask him really, but I think the fact that I was just consistent with my work, I think was a big thing.
So Sean's time at Wigan came to an end, and so did yours as well, which is quite often the case. But you've alluded to it or said it out loud actually that you were ready for another opportunity to manage a first team, and of course because it's Shadab Iftikhar, it's got to be Bhutan. And I was embarrassed to say, I know it's South Asia, but I had to get the map out and see exactly where Bhutan is, slightly to the east of India and Pakistan and that region. I mean, how did that come about? When do you start? What you expect? In fact, I know I'm asking questions that I know the answer to because I've already had you on the phone talking to people about transfer targets. So talk to us about Bhutan.
So I know the president, again, through Paul Watson. He's agent Paul, to be honest with you. He's done brilliant for my career. I actually became technical director for a little period from England, and that was a good time. So I knew the president really well, sent a player to him as well, so got a good relationship. He actually asked me in September time, I think it was, and I was in the office with Tom Huddleston and Andrew Lonergan, and I said to them that, look, if any of you want to go manage in Bhutan, I said, I can get you there. And at the time I said no, really, I was quite settled at Wigan. Then he approached me towards the end of my time at Wigan, and that's when I was like, actually now, there has to be. I've got to think about this now a lot with more seriousness. So I thought about it, and I said, I spoke to certain people, Sean, Roberto, Derek Adams, and I was like, yeah, this is something now that I want to do. And then the president, she's been brilliant, really supportive, really backed me. Everything I've wanted, I've got really good relationship at the moment. Not played a game, obviously, it's always a good relationship before you kick a ball, but no, really good. Transfer window's been good. Hopefully after this I can check the phone and we get the other two over the line. But it's been really good. I go in a couple of days. The season starts April 12th, roughly. 7-month season. The club have not won the league in the last 5 years. Finished second 4 times, third wants, and we're going to do everything we can to take the next step.
I guess it's one of the first jobs you've gone into where the club is stronger than they have been before. You've taken up clubs in crisis mainly, and this is the first club you've taken on as a first team manager that's not in a crisis.
I think I was saying this to a friend that this is the first time I actually had a pre-season.
Yeah.
But William joined mid-season, Mongolia joined mid-season, Escobanca joined mid-season, or no pre-season. This is the first time, even though it's a short pre-season, I've actually got in place certain things. So it's only been 17 years I've waited for it, but all good things come to those who wait.
It's amazing that it's 17 years and here you are, you sat there with your 35?
Yeah, 35, yeah.
And your 17-year managerial career. Talk to us as much as you can. You might have to be a bit general because you don't want to give away confidential information, but how do you go about signing players into the Bhutanese league? Because my understanding is you're not necessarily signing a load of Bhutanese players. You're bringing players in from outside that country.
Yeah, we can play 5 foreigners. Can have as many as we want. We can play 5 foreigners. So I looked at the league. I looked at what I had, and I looked at what profiles I needed, and then it's just looking around what you can get. So I knew the Pakistan market really well, so I knew I could get people that maybe other people didn't know about. So that was one market. Spoke to a few agents, and I used this time for whatever reason. This African Senegal market was the one that was there, and I brought in hopefully 4 by the end of this today.
Well, by the time people listen to this, they don't know if you're successful. Just do a little Google on your team sheet. Yeah.
So, but yeah, the Senegal market's been really good to us, and we've been able to use that market really, really well.
And I mean, I guess it's the lawyer in me just obsessing over the paperwork and the immigration status and all that. I mean, how easy is it for a Bhutanese football club to sign boys from Senegal?
It can be very easy, or it can be very difficult. It just depends. 3 out of 4 have been very good, both everything. The 4th one has been difficult, been tricky, but like anything, it's just always nothing's ever straightforward. Yeah. And until when you realise that, it's fine. In Pakistan, there was always this, there was that. But again, the Pakistan Federation were brilliant, and again, the Pakistan been brilliant with me. Senegal Federation been really good as well. So, like anything, everything's complicated. When you're dealing with people, you're dealing with different moving parts. Nothing's ever going to be straightforward, and it's just life, isn't it?
Well, a lot of the work that Fraser and I do is about looking after the players and player care and making sure the human being's all right. How on earth do a Bhutanese Premier League team look after these boys that they're bringing in from Pakistan or Bhutan, or even a young lad from Preston that's going to be coming in and living in another brand new country? The
president's brilliant, Hishi. We've got 3 players already over there. They're absolutely loving it. One of them wants to bring his sister to play for the women's team. They're absolutely loving it. The sort of hospitality is phenomenal, and I knew this because of the way one of the players that I sent got looked after. Hishi is as a person is his yes means yes, his no means no. If he says that, it'll happen, and he's upfront with you. That's all you want as a manager, clarity. And all you want as players is clarity, and that's the big thing.
And do you know where you're going to live?
Yeah, so we've got a hotel over there. So we've got a hotel suite, which would be nice. Got an office there as well. I wanted to base myself in the hotel, me and the analysis.
Yeah, so you're close to the action. That sounds like you.
Yeah, I didn't want the 30-minute walk to the training ground and then be based over there. I'd rather be in the hotel. I don't know why. It's a gut feeling that there's a nice hotel office. The analysis who I brought from Pakistan is going to be there. The staff will join us there. Just felt right, the hotel. Don't know why. It saves time. I got taught to always capture time. The smart person captures time. Be efficient with time. So if I can go from my hotel room to the office and it's an elevator, then it makes sense to that time then can be used to work on the team.
Yeah. Wow. It's an extraordinary journey that you've come on, and I'm very conscious of time, which we're coming towards the end of. We barely even touched on Belgium, but maybe we should just really briefly touch on that before we allow you to go, because when people are listening to this, you will be in Bhutan. We're recording this on a Friday. You're in Bhutan on Monday. So we've been trying to get this interview in the diary. It's not, there's things that we've not allowed us to do it. But let's quickly reflect back on Belgium, because I think that must have been one of your greatest moments. Is like you went to that World Cup in Qatar with Roberto, and I wonder whether one day you will end up managing a group of lads who are as good as those boys. But to have coached that group of players must have been quite incredible for you.
Yes, I did the opposition scouting, so I never actually got on the field with them, but what a great group. Really good. In Qatar was good. It was obviously difficult. We got knocked out in the group stage. We couldn't get the ball off Modric. He was very good that day. Very good. But no, but it was a great experience. And you saw how good Roberto was. That was the thing that I took away with all of that. With everything that was going on, you can only see a true test of a person when difficulty arrives. The true test of a man, I think the saying is, when they're under real pressure. And when I saw Roberto as calm as ever, as controlled as ever in big moments, proper leader. And that for me was like the big thing, that it was a difficult time, a lot going on, but there was only one leader, and you knew who led that group. Brilliant.
He's someone you rightly really admire. At that World Cup, they exited in the group stages. How do you think he reflects on that failure, which was undoubtedly a failure? Bearing in mind the way that you've reflected on some of your own.
I think if you look where Belgium were and where he's took them and the journey, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And you're talking moments. You're talking a World Cup 2018 a header. You're talking a chance in the against Croatia that normally goes in. You're talking moments. Croatia and Morocco, I think, got to the semi-final of that World Cup. Nobody expected that, and it shows you how good, how strong those were. So Roberto is special, and trust me when I said it, because I remember speaking about the Croatia game, and I said I would have done this and I would have done that, and he said this is why I did this, and I went, oh yeah, you're right. I said, yeah, you can have that one again. But just a special man, and like I said, look what he's doing in Portugal, and he will lift a trophy with Portugal. Mark my words.
I think the question that I wanted to leave this with was, I don't want you to commit too much, because who knows what country you will be in after Bhutan. I hope you're there for a long time and win trophies, because trophies don't lie. But where, I don't want to say where do you see your future, but have you got a map in your mind of what you would love to achieve as a football manager?
There was a lot of Premier Leagues, but Pep's took that too far, to be honest with you. I think he's ruined it. I think he's done unbelievable well. I think being brought up in England, being here, for me to manage in the Premier League and to win a Premier League. Managing the Premier League is not success for me. To win a Premier League would be success. Yeah. To win a Champions League, to win an African Cup of Nations, a Copa America, a European Championship, World Cups, I've got to deliver on the biggest stages. That I'm not giving everything to my management career to finish second or to be part of it. But there's lots of world-class managers out there who are better than me that are not in the Premier League right now. So it's a dream, but to achieve any dream, I got to work very hard, be very dedicated, and be. I think Arsene Wenger said it's the consistency and the endurance in the journey. Anybody can work hard in the first week in Bhutan, but can I work hard in the second to last week in Bhutan? That's the key. Can I treat every game the same? So the way I treat Bhutan will dictate if I'm in a position that I'm going to be good enough to manage the next job. I got to treat Bhutan like it is the biggest job of my life, because that's the way everything has always been that way. UCLan was the biggest job. Heska Bank was the biggest job. Bhutan is my focus and the biggest job.
It's a brilliant mindset for not just for people that want to have a career in sport, but I think in any walk of life, just to have, to find something when you're young that you connect with. And again, I'm a very spiritual person. I think things are put in your path for a reason. Something that you connect with, something you got passion for, and then just giving everything to get to that and not capping yourself. I think so many people in all walks of life cap themselves, and they'll go, yeah, you know what, I'd take a League Two, and if I could be a Football League manager, it's like, no, why would I cap myself there? I'm going to go for there. And if you end up there, if you cap yourself at League Two, you probably end up there. If you cap yourself there, you've probably got more of a chance to get there. But it's an unbelievable journey so far, and it still seems like it's only just beginning, which is an exciting one.
I think it occurs to me that it's so important for you to aim for those huge, huge heights. And my only hope for you is that when you are older and grey, is that you still reflect on what you achieve in spite of not because you probably won't be as successful as Pep Guardiola. I'm nervous about saying that to you because I think your confidence is such that you think that's possible, and I hope you do. I really hope you do. But let's say you don't achieve what Pep Guardiola achieves, but you become, for example, the first British Asian to manage a professional football team in the top 4 divisions of this country. What an achievement that would be. And I really hope you do already reflect, actually, or at least when you're retired, you reflect on what you've achieved. Because I use that phrase at the beginning, what you can't be, what you can't see. The idea that you could manage a League 2 team, a League 1 team, a Championship team, a Premier League team, and the idea of young British Asian boys and girls, indeed, looking at you and thinking, well, Shadab did it. Why can't I?
Yeah, I think it's something that's interesting. I don't reflect because I think you can get complacent a little bit and be like, oh, we've done this, we've done that. Yeah, it's good, but I think you've got to stay hungry. You've got to think to yourself, well, okay, that's gone now. I remember a great saying that the sun rises every day, the lion has to go and chase after the deer has to every day, and that's how it should be. What you did yesterday is gone. You got to look at what, because somebody right now is not on a podcast, is watching a game, is working harder than me.
You're wasting an hour with us.
Exactly. So the paycheck's okay. So it's like you have to ask yourself that somebody's chasing what you've got. Somebody right now would give their right arm to go to Bhutan and manage.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky. So I've got to make the most of it. And when it's all said and done, you take full responsibility. Nobody is Sir Alex Ferguson said this, the best thing. No one's coming to your front door and give you anything. Anything that you want, you have to go and achieve. No one's coming to save you. You can't Google at half time when things go wrong. Google ain't going to be there for you. You ask me why I'm not on social media, because it wastes time. That time could be invested into watching a game. That time could be invested in reading. You got to capture time. Am I good at it? No, I'm terrible at it. But I know what I should be doing. Yeah. But that's the key.
That part you say about reflecting and you don't do it too much and you're on to the next thing. I remember listening to some of the Man United boys talk about this, and some of them will get to the end of a career. I'm sure Rio Ferdinand was asked it, and it was like, what would you do differently? And I think his response was, I wish I'd have enjoyed it more. And then I've seen different responses, and you see people like Roy Keane, for example, they're winning, they win the Champions League and everyone's celebrating. In the change room, he's going, what about next year? Like, we want to win it again. And it's that mindset of, if you are somebody that, Rio Ferdinand probably looks back from hindsight, but actually when he's in that moment, he's looking to go again. And if you didn't have that mindset and you kick your feet up and go, oh, we've made it, you probably wouldn't end up achieving all the things that you did. Yeah. So actually having that mindset of going, right, we've achieved something, what's next? Instead of going, right, we've done it, we've completed it. Because that's the difference between winning one trophy and like that Ferguson team winning 10, 11 Premier Leagues in that short space of time of leaving a legacy like that.
Yeah, well, we talk a lot to young players about social media and the validation that comes from it, and that's the main thing. It's the human ego. I'm a good footballer, opposed to a picture of myself being a good footballer. People tell me I'm a good footballer, and that's that kind of time wasting that you're talking about. And thank you for reminding me of social media, because it was one thing that we spoke about offline before we came on, and I regret to talk to you about it. And again, it's that kind of like guilt that I feel as a white man that doesn't have to put up with this kind of stuff. I know that that's not the reason you're on social media, is to avoid racism and prejudice which exists, but I know that you know that it does exist. And it was one post on Twitter that I saw when Wigan bade you farewell, and by the way, most of the comments were people saying, Shadab, thank you very much for your service to the club, we wish you well. And then I went down the list and I saw that not everyone was saying that, and there were a few people and they're just making racist jokes. I mean, how much do you kind of feel your ethnic heritage when you're in football compared to feeling it every day when you're in Preston?
Okay, so let's flip this now. Is there a racism problem in football? What do we both think? What do we all think?
I think there's a racism problem in society.
Yeah.
I think football brings out stronger partisan feelings that people who are inclined towards racism are sometimes drawn to football to express it. I think we've got a big problem with racism in society.
Okay, so all of us have a role to make it better. If you've got responsibility, you've got to do it. That's the way it is. The way I look at it is this: how can I make an impact? Do I need to go and do this, do that, or do I go make a success? if I became successful and I was really successful, would anybody look at my colour? If I would to win a Premier League, would I want to go, I don't think I want to hire him, or would they think, no, I want to hire him because he's successful? So the way, this is my outlook, and this is, I can't speak for anybody else, this is just me. The way I want to deal with racism and the way I want to try and make it a better place, the world, is to look after myself, focus on me. If I become successful, that should have an impact on others. So rather than talk about this, and we spoke a lot about it. As things got better or things got worse, it's easy to speak about it. It's easy to go and put statistics up. It's easy to say we're doing X, Y, and Z. But the actual impact then, what's happening? So the way I look at it is, how are you going to make an impact? If I can go and be successful, will that help my community? Will that help Muslims around the world? Look what Khabib's done for the UFC and for Muslims. Look what Amir Khan's done. How many Asians feel now they can go into boxing? Nassim Hamed before, potentially. Look at Mohammed Salah. Look what he's done for Africa. Look what he's done for Islam. Look what he's done for... And these are top people, by the way.
And also for young boys from South Asian heritage as well. I've seen a lot of South Asian fans going and watching Liverpool and being drawn to Mo Salah. And it's just that feeling of, there's a boy who looks a bit like me. Yeah. So therefore I can, if Mo can do it, then I can do it. I think he's a really powerful figure.
Brilliant. But look at the people that I mentioned. Khabib. What do you know about them outside of their profession? Little. Because they give everything to their craft. It's why they're there. So I never lost a game because of racism. So if I dedicate myself properly, if I don't do podcasts, if I don't go for a coffee, if I don't go Asda with the missus, if I don't do all this and dedicate myself to my career and become successful, that surely has more impact on dealing with racism than going to a meeting or talking about this, talking about that. Because we all pat ourselves on the back. We think we've done here. We have a meeting. We've done really well. But it's just patting ourselves on the back. And somebody asked me about football there. It must be horrible being in a results business. Well, no, actually, when you look at things, it's brilliant. I lose a game. I lose 2 games. I lose 3 games. I'm getting sacked. At least I know I'm judged on something. Yeah. You get too many people, in my opinion, now in jobs that they were there for 10 years, no impact happens, and they keep the job.
Proper results business.
Yeah. So, in fact, if life was more results business and results orientated, would it change certain things? So, actually, when I look at it, I'm glad I'm in management because I'm judged by results. I'm judged if I work 1 hour a day, I lose. If I work 15 hours a day and win, I control that. So, yeah. So, for me, we all know there's a problem. But the way I look at it is, well, if I become the best I can become and focus on that, don't focus my energy on that. Focus my energy on being the best. Don't worry what people say. There's 10,000 people better than me out there. Probably 1 million. They're getting hated. They're getting negativity. So why am I going to be mean to it? If anything, I should get it because I'm not that good. So fine, no problem. But it shouldn't affect you because when it's all said and done, men, women lie, trophies don't. That's the key. And if you win and you can be successful, that's what everybody wants. Yeah. If Pep Guardiola had a beard like mine and was Asian and he was that good, would it make a difference?
Yeah. Well, let's hope that there's a trophy coming your way this season. I've now got another team to support in a league, which I didn't even realise I was going to be supporting a team in Thimpu City in Bhutan. Shadab, thank you so much. You've been very generous in giving all of your time. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for the invite, being brilliant.